radiating from the Lone Star State and stretching from coast to coast and border to border. This is OnRadio, the weekly download from your family of companies: CMS Wireless, Enertech, ET Tower, Legacy, and Mountain Wireless. Welcome to OnRadio.
Hey, wireless family, Jim Tracy, your host, back with everything wireless and OnRadio. And today we are blessed. We have a special guest, Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers, hails from Eastern Washington, not Washington, Eastern Washington. And there's a big difference there in what they call Congressional District 5. And she's been representing the good people of Eastern Washington since 2004. And she has just been confirmed as the chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee. And this is important to all of us because she is establishing a little bit of command and control of the committee that creates policy and is at the leading edge, the tip of the spear for America's economy and everything telecom, including and especially our beloved wireless, which we enable the world with. Good morning, Congresswoman. How are you? Welcome to OnRadio.
I'm doing great. It's great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right. You know, I want people to get to know you a little bit like we did when you were, you jumped in a man basket and went up a water tank in really windy, terrible conditions in Airway Heights, Washington, and helped us launch and make the first T-Mobile 5G call into an Air Force base over at Fairchild. And so you've got, when it comes to telecom, you got street cred now.
That was great. That was so fun. Really, an incredible experience. And for me to be able to make the first call, the first 5G call from Airway Heights was pretty extraordinary. I remember I tried to call my husband, but I think he didn't pick up. He was busy with our kids. I think they just started summer vacation, but that is servicing the communities around Fairchild Air Force Base and really important. And it was something. I hadn't been up that high in a lift like that before, 140 feet up. It was on a big water tower, and it made me a bit nervous, but it also took me back to my early days when I was climbing ladders at our orchard and fruit stand where I grew up picking fruit up in Kettle Falls, Washington.
Well, you joined some pretty exclusive company with Brendan Carr, the climate commissioner. We call him the spider monkey because he's all over towers. And now your colleague Dan Crenshaw climbed with us down in Texas on a tower. And so you joined pretty elite company in terms of your experience in the tower business. But our backgrounds often they define us and they create perspective. And you talked about that a minute ago, but your background is probably not widely known. You have a rural agricultural childhood that really kind of formed a bit of who you are, don't you?
For sure. I'm fifth generation in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Both sides of my family came out on the Oregon Trail, and my dad's family has always been in agriculture. My dad's a farmer, and grew up on the farm. My family owned an orchard and fruit stand in Kettle Falls, which is it's up north on the Columbia River.
Yeah.
And it was just a great way to grow up, learn hard work, learn how difficult it is running a small business, all those input costs and rising costs.
Yeah.
But my dad was always very active in the community, a real example to me as far as the importance of being involved in a community. I remember him telling me early on, I was complaining something about Kettle Falls Town and Country Days and the fun run. And he says, Kathy, don't just complain. If you think this should be done different or better, then get involved and do it, right? Don't complain about it, just do it. And I just appreciate so much the foundation, those values that I learned early on.
Right on.
Yeah, in small town.
If something's wrong, go fix it. There you go.
That's right.
Your background also is really essential because that small business, when you look at the roots of our American economy, small businesses, we employ like 70% of the folks, don't we?
Oh, for sure. Yes, it's the engine of our economy.
Yeah.
The American dream. This idea that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, that this is a country where you have the opportunity to take those ideas that you have for new products, new services, and start a business. And it's easier to do this anywhere in the world, right? That we celebrate entrepreneurship and innovation. It's part of, we talk about the American dream, but it's freedom and free markets and freedom loving people that have the ability to take those ideas for new products, new services, and actually do something, without, as in other countries, getting permission from the government. Although, oh my goodness, the federal government is controlling more and more.
Yeah.
But that has been the foundation of our economy, and it's what has distinguished us, is part of what has distinguished us from other nations around the world. And it really is free markets and freedom that has driven that entrepreneurship and innovation that has long defined Americans.
Well, certainly, and I used to work for some British fellows back when I was young, and they always referred to America, their America, because they were imports, but
Mhm.
they referred to America as the last bastion of freedom and capitalism in the world, and we're still really that, aren't we?
We definitely are. And you look at our history, we've led the world in every sector. We've led in agriculture and agriculture production, and not just feeding America, but feeding the world. We've led in healthcare and in breakthroughs and cures, and we've led in telecommunications
And
and
telecom, yeah.
yes, in telecom, right? We've led in during COVID, when our lives were shut down overnight, businesses were shut down, schools were shut down, our network performed better than anywhere in the world, right? And overnight, the
Yeah.
number, you can speak to this better than I can, but all of us, are at home, and what that means as far as the demand on the network was incredible. And
Yeah.
it was the American system that rose to the occasion. And it's because it is a free market driven country and nation and people and businesses that said, okay, we gotta do this. And it's a real tribute to, again, to telecom for what they were able to do during COVID-19.
Yeah, we continually tell the boots on the ground that we had a 30% spike in traffic virtually overnight, and literally the U.S. wireless infrastructure is the only one that didn't kind of fall flat on its face worldwide. So you're right; they have something to be really proud of. So there's some more things that people ought to know about you that I think are important. You are married to a Navy veteran of how many years was he in the service?
Brian served for 26 years in the Navy.
26 years. That makes you a military spouse, which is a really important part of also what forms who you are and how you come to make policies for our beloved veterans in the US of A, huh?
Oh, for sure. Brian reminds me every day of sacrifices that those who put on the uniform make for us as a country, as a people, protecting our freedoms as a nation. And so proud of Brian and his service, and all who have put on the uniform, grateful for their service, grateful for their example, and making sure that our veterans get the care that they need and the support that they need has always been a priority for me. I also co-chair the Military Family Caucus, which is
Yes.
focused on military families. We host a military family summit at Fairchild Air Force Base
Hmm.
pretty regularly to put that microphone in front of our military families and highlight issues that are important to them. It's one of the pillars of our nation. And for those who are serving or who have served, not only can we not say thank you enough for their service and their example, but we need to make sure that they're getting the support that they need.
Hmm. And you have really been kind of a champion of the military, and so thanks to Brian. You can pass along our thanks to Brian for that, and tell him to keep you dialed in on that, because it really is important, and that's coming from an Army dad. So so thank
An
you.
Army
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Well, you pulled out the squeaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a good day in our household, but
Yeah.
Army beat Navy.
the game of the year.
Yes.
So, there are some challenges coming up in the wireless as our industry looks forward and we roll out 5G. Now, on a technical level, we're already looking at 6G. We're down the road, but we still have to roll out 5G and provide ubiquitous rural broadband across America. And in the swamp, they probably call it flyover country, but we're not really flyover people. We actually are the breadbasket, and from the Cascades all the way through the Great Lakes, we've got some places where there's a lot of what I would call digital discrimination going on, and we need to get more folks engaged and aware that this 5G rollout, it doesn't happen without our boots on the ground. And so one of the things that we're doing through NATE, and NATE is the National Association of Tower Rectors, is putting together programs along with Department of Labor and some other folks like that to enhance the availability, because there's a real shortage of labor in our country. These qualified technicians that go out in all kinds of weather, and so. This is very similar 5G in some sense as a utility as rural electrification was. How important is rural 5G up there where you live and in the Eastern Washington segment that you represent?
It's become critical infrastructure. Our lives are only more and more online. And as we were just talking about during the pandemic and the decisions that were made that resulted in our lives being shut down, kids being home from school, businesses being shut down, it was only underscored the importance of us being connected. Telehealth was one example where it was really jump-started during the pandemic, and kind of a silver lining, but all of that underscored the importance of us really closing this digital divide once and for all. That there were unserved, underserved regions in rural areas, but also in some major cities. And in Eastern Washington that I'm proud to represent, there are regions, there are communities. Even I was talking to the Spokane County Commissioner yesterday, in Fairfield and Rockford, just south of Spokane, you're talking 10, 15 miles south of Spokane. They don't have coverage in those small cities. And then if you get up north into northeastern Washington, anyway, there continues to be unserved regions that we need to close this digital divide once and for all. And there's been major investment made at the federal level coming out of the pandemic. There's a lot of money that the federal government has committed to closing the digital divide. I am concerned that there's this overemphasis on a one-size-fits-all approach, that a focus on laying more fiber to improve the connectivity, when in some rural communities that doesn't make sense. And we need to recognize that there's a variety of technologies in which people can get a connection, whether in some cases it will be fiber, in others it's fixed wireless, can be satellite, but all of those technologies should be embraced as we seek to accomplish the goal of closing the digital divide. So that's one, is being technology neutral. The other big issue is around the maps. And I believe that in order for us to ensure that this money is not wasted or used to duplicate, ensure up networks that currently exist, that we need to have accurate maps. We've been waiting for the FCC to update the maps for several years, actually, and we got updated maps, but now there's still a lot of regions where it's not correct. So I just encourage everyone to review these maps and get their feedback to the FCC. But ultimately, we need Congress had passed legislation. It was back. It's been a few years ago now that asked the FCC for more granular data to update these maps to make sure that they were accurate, so that we could target the resources to the truly unserved unserved and underserved regions, not just in Eastern Washington, but around the country.
Yeah, and what you say makes so much sense because fixed wireless can provide great service. And fixed wireless, I mean, if people ever try to run a trench to put fiber in through the Rocky Mountains or through the Cascades, you know that trenching doesn't really work there. But when you skip over the top of the ground with a fixed wireless signal, and then the rollout of it is so much faster because we change a radio and we have. So you have one node serving many people versus one trench serving one farm, one family. And so I really appreciate your technology neutral approach. And I think it really speaks to your focus on best case use. And so number one, thank you, and I appreciate that. And as do all the folks who pay their tax dollars. You want them spent wisely. So thank you for that, folks. Thanks for tuning in to On Radio. Join us again next week for part 2 of our talk with Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers, our representative from Eastern Washington. We are so looking forward to it. We'll dive in a little deeper next week. But until then, let's choose safety today. This is Jim, and I am out.